Hey everybody, Cindy Daychuck here with Queen Bee Creations. This video is part of a collaboration series with a ton of other super creative folks. So I'm going to drop the link down below when you have finished this video. Then I invite you to pop on over, check out the link, and see what some of the other creatives in the group have been up to. For today's video, we're going to experiment together. I haven't done this. And I don't have instructions, but in my head it works. So we'll see how it turns out in real life. Now, what I do have are some big rhubarb leaves from my garden. And what I'm thinking is that we should be able to prop these up and turn them into beautiful cement dishes. Now I've done some similar things with chocolate, so doing decorative leaves on a cake. So I'm kind of doing concrete instead of the chocolate. Let's play together, right? So what I wanted to do was to kind of prop the leaves up a little bit. So I have some little plastic glasses. I have really old, gee, I need to throw them out rags, but you could use tin foil or anything. All I'm looking at doing here, and I need glasses, is just kind of propping up that leaf to create a little bit of the shape, because we're going to be molding over the back of it so that when we flip it over and remove the leaf, we'll have all that beautiful vein. What I do have is a container of Quickcrete. Now, I got this off Amazon, so I'll drop the link. Really, it's just concrete. It's just powdered. This one just sets up really fast, hence the quick part of the concrete name. It says just using 5 parts of this to 1 part water, roughly. I'm just gonna mix up a bit and see how it goes, and then mix up more as I need it. And I am doing this in a disposable container just because I'm gonna wanna throw it out after. I don't wanna have to be trying to figure out how to clean up concrete, and I'm here at the shop. So I'm gonna be applying it with my hands. So I am adding some little gloves because I figured concrete is probably a little bit harsh, even though my hands are probably a mess anyway. So I'm just going to take it in blobs and kind of mush it onto my leaf. And I'm thinking that I'm gonna do this maybe in stages, meaning I wanna get this leaf and pattern down in terms of the dish, and then I'll worry about the base. But right now, overall, this seems to be molding okay. So I need more concrete for this, but because it's setting up, I want to get it onto my form and just kind of set this up a little bit more. And I'm going to want to support some of these edges a little bit more, create a little bit more of a dish shape with it. Let's let this firm up, and I'll come back for the grade unmolding, and we'll see together whether it works or not. Fingers crossed. I am so hoping this works because I think it could look super cool. Okay, our 2 leaves have had overnight to dry, and I have not even peeked at them yet. I wanted to do this with you. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at how they turned out, or if they turned out. Okay, so far, so good. We can see our leaf in here. Let's see if we can get the leaf out. It is coming out slowly, and I think I'm probably just going to have to go find some slightly more delicate tools to be able to pull it out, but it is coming out and it looks pretty awesome actually. Let me show you just close up. You can see all the veining in there. And it seems, I mean, as much as I tried to do this fairly thin, it does still seem fairly substantial in so far as, you know, as I'm pulling, it doesn't seem like it's going to shatter. I actually had a thought about taking a toilet paper tube and cutting some of it off. Let me just try doing that maybe. And if I cut it off, angled this a little bit, so maybe do a little bit of a V on either side. So just cutting some little angles out of there and resting this on it. Okay, so one side needs to be a deeper V than the other side, which just makes logical sense in retrospect. There we go. So one of my thoughts is taking something like that toilet paper tube and cutting it and angling it and then cementing it down into place. So you have a little bit of a pedestal. So you've got a bit of a dish that kind of flows down. I'm gonna take these over and futz with getting the rest of the leaf out. I'm not gonna agonize over smoothing them out and sanding them out yet if I'm gonna be putting a base onto them. So if I'm gonna be putting this base, and again, you're just gonna be kind of doing what I'm doing here, which is cutting away that tube. Okay, that's a good shape for that. So that tube is lying flat. That's kind of sitting nicely. I like how it kind of angles up and then over a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is take the rest of this leaf out and take a closer look at this little one and whether or not we want to have a little bit of a stand for it or not, a little bit of a raised stand. And then before we do anything else, we will flip it over and I'll come back and we're gonna cement this. All right, I have both of these all nicely cleaned off. What I found was just taking a sharp toothpick and running it along the veins helped get things out, and I just use a stiff brush to be able to brush the rest of the leaf parts. I was thinking leaf skin, and that's not quite right. Out of the way. So I have my little pieces of toilet paper tube kind of cut down to size, and I'm just going to mix up a little bit more of our concrete. Now this is pretty gloppy, but that's along the lines of what I need here. So I'm going to put some on the inside of my tube, kind of fill it up. And I'm just kind of smoothing out a little bit. And I had a couple of little spots where the veins, I didn't have tons over top of it. So in essence, there was like a little hole going through to the bottom. So I just looking at this as being an opportunity to just kind of seal those over and cover them up. And that's it for this stage. So I'm going to let this settle up, firm up overnight, and then tomorrow when we get back together, I will look at starting to do some of the sanding, some of the smoothing process together. Really what I'm looking at doing now is kind of smoothing down edges. On the bottom, what I'm looking at, that's very noisy. For the bottom, what I'm looking at is simply leveling it out in a way that the piece will sit. So this one, I've kind of got nicely where it can sit straight up. This one, I had originally intended for it to sit kind of on an angle rather than flat. So what I am looking at doing is kind of rounding off this bottom a little bit. Okay? And then I am taking this, in cooking it's called this would be like a rasp. So I'm thinking it's maybe the same thing, but I am looking at using it just along those edges to soften them out a little bit so that there's nothing that's too sharp or pokey. It's a technical term, pokey. But I don't want to sand to the top because I don't want to lose the definition of my leaf, but just around all those edges to smooth them out and just make it a little bit of a nicer texture around the edge. Oh, little piece of leaf still there. So that's what I'm looking at doing. I do have a, I think this is an 80 grit. Yeah, an 80 grit sandpaper as well, that once I've done kind of the big job with this, then I'll go around and just kind of sand off and round those edges, and it just smooths them right out. Metal file quite a bit, but just to get off the major rough sections. I did find that the 80 grit worked really, really well at kind of smoothing out, doing the final little finishing around the edges. You saw that I did kind of take the 80 grit and just take off all the rough nubbins off the bottom. So then just kind of wipe them off, get as much of that concrete dust off as you can, and then you seal them. So you could do a plain sealer, and oh Lord, sorry, just bang your jar to get the lid open. I'm going to use some DIY Big Top, but because this whole thing has been an experiment, I'm going to add a couple of drops of Newgrass IOD ink to it. And I don't know how much it would need, so that was maybe 3 little drops. Let's see how that goes. Just rather than just straight clear. I'm not looking for them to be super green, so I'm thinking that might be enough to just kind of give a little bit of a greenish tint to it. And then you're just going to be, yeah, it's not enough to give a greenish tint at all. But it is sealing it. I'll see what it looks like when it dries, if it gives any of it. And I wasn't really looking for a lot of anything. If I want to, I can go back in afterward. But I'm thinking I might just like that wet concrete look for these. Since I'm in an experimenting mood, I'm gonna add a little bit more of that green to this one and just see if that makes any kind of a difference. You could add any kind of green paint to your sealer here. You know, you could use any of the DIY. You could add in some acrylics maybe if you wanted to be able to do. This one's definitely greener. And it's just, I just wanted a hint, and I thought if I used any of the other paints, it would be a little less translucent and a little bit more opaque. And I really wanted that that translucent sort of look, just kind of that hint of color to it. So you can see that this one has a little bit more of that green peeking through, and just kind of in the amount that I was maybe anticipating or going for. But again, you're getting the lovely details that are peeking through. So, you know, you can go back in and you could paint them a solid color, use a white wax to be able to highlight the veining, or paint them dark. Yeah, paint them dark with a white wax, or light with a dark wax or powder, or, you know, have fun with any of the new DIY pigments that are coming out. I mean, anything like that. You can see this one's got a little bit more of that slight leafy green color to it. That's it. That's the look that we're after, right? Is that curly leaf look with all of that detailed veining, to be able to make some great little serving dishes out on the patio, which would be super cute and very different. Collecting keys and change on a console table or a hall table somewhere, on a bedroom counter, just something really different and kind of unique. So if you give it a try, post your pics. I'd love to be able to see it. Don't forget to be able to check out any of the other videos in the collaboration. There's going to be some awesome ideas for you to be able to try from some of the other creatives. And in the meantime, any of your paint supplies, check out queenbeecreationshome.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.